Let's just try some straightening the spine from prayer posture. Just going up and down with the hands. Feeling the spine, especially the sort of mid-spine, unkinking. Feel that midpoint in the spine. So the arms are pushing up from that point, but beneath that point is really dropping down and driving into the ground through the cushion. So it's like I have two minds. One mind is with the upper body driving upwards, rational, clear-sighted, and another mind that's very sort of animalistic from my mid back down. The upper body tends to be ruled by the head. We'd like it to be ruled by the heart. So here, really sort of bringing the head back a bit and letting the heart really thrust upwards, almost aggressively. And just feel how that helps the lower spine dig down. Just send the hands out. So just turning. Let's just pick up the stick. But no sense that the stick is pulling the head forwards. So if anything, the stick, what it adds really is its physicality. It's something I can push into. I can arch my back against it and then just turn it. Inching its way down the spine. Okay, so let's try just some tipping. So it's like you have two spines. So one side is contracting and the other side is expanding. But to go with those, you also have two minds. So here, one part of my mind is shrinking and working to contract, and the other part is expanding joyously. And so as we look up, it's like our visual mind is going upwards, but the back of my head is reaching downwards. So again, the two minds, like the upper and the lower body. Now let's just try one more thing. The ward off, pulling out from here, and the shoulder blades pulling away from the spine. So let's just link the fingers. Pull, right? You're trying to do this. So your elbows are pulling away. You don't want them to pull away so much that the hands come in. The hands are trying to push outwards. The elbows are trying to push outwards. Feel it across the shoulders, the shoulder blades. Keep that pressure, so keep the expanding pressure and just bring it above the head. Back down to here. Really let the shoulder blades release from the spine and spread across your back. And then just bring it down to here. And then this is meditation. So I'm still trying to pull the hands away from each other. The sense that this hoop of the arms is expanding or trying to. And like your Dan Chen is just resting on your hands. Now let's just bring it up again. John always used to stress about the meditation. There should be an element of physical work to it. So it's not just relaxing and going into like a slumber with the mind. So when the hands are down, the stress is gone in a way, but there's still work being done because I'm still trying to do this. Feel like the circuit. So you can imagine a circuit like from the Dan Chen coming up and then just going down the arm and then up and down the other arm. So the energy is rising from the Dan Chen and then just branching down the arms. And that's really helping these points pull away and open up. We see the trace, visualize it, imagine it, but it becomes real. There's a real sense of something tracking its way through the body, like a snake slowly taking this route. So you have to use the body as well. You have to use like internal musculature. Going down and gradually increasing it, but letting the tail out. So it's still got this sense of arching. Like we're going to do a squat. If we're going to do a squat, you'd have to let your tail really go out. Otherwise, you'd fall too far forwards. I'm leading with the tail. My tail got this idea to go down. Almost like the tail is trying to escape out of your own body. It's going backwards and down. So as you go down, you become sort of more fierce. Don't let yourself look down. The tail gets fiercely towards the ground, so your upper body reaches upwards. So it's an intensification as you go down. And then there's a real sense of deflation as you come up. My tail goes down. And then how do I come up? Just imagine your thymus lifting. the adductors here, these muscles here. So we're just really trying to lengthen those and relax them. So when you're sitting down, you can do like that butterfly pose and just press the knees out alternately. All the time, the tail is released. So a lot of our getting our bum in is like a repressive force. It's a bunching up of the tail largely. So these are a little bit looser, so it can really open here. And then we want the same feeling in the arms. Pulling away from the back. So the shoulder blade is part of the arm. So I want the shoulder blade to squeeze away from the spine. So let's just try this. So just staying down. When we work on the arms, it does tend to make it a bit top heavy. So here I just have to release to get that arm out away from the spine. And then it just comes round without reducing in length. It's not shrinking round, it's just circling round. So if anything, as it pulls in to ward off, it gets longer. And these pockets here become really empty. So there's an adductor here that attaches onto the shoulder here and comes across underneath the collarbone. So that's the muscle we want to just loosen and relax. So the tail we want to release, and the adductors we want to release. So the muscles that will tend to pull your legs in like this will tend to make you knock-kneed and for it difficult to get into cross-leg posture. And then the muscles here that tend to pull the arm down and in. So it's the opposite. So as you do this here, just feel the shoulder blade just release away from the spine and get extended into this curve. What we would like is the same thing in the legs. So you can think of the hip bone here, this side of my hip, equivalent to the shoulder blade. So as I reach out like this and my shoulder blade almost unattaches from my spine, I want the same sense here, like my sacroiliac has opened up and it's allowed the hip just to come away a little bit. And then I get this sort of ripple of release down the leg in the same way that I get a ripple of release down the arm into the fingers. So remember, whatever we do with the arms should happen in the legs as well. And in fact, we're using the arms just to help the legs. It's all release. Releasing from my spine here, but it's releasing from my sacrum here. But it's also releasing my fearful, anxious desire to hold on to myself, to keep control. And much of that repressive force is in this area. The excretory and the sexual. I just want to let go of all that so that I can just take the ground as support. The ground is my reference. The ground is my home. I don't have tension here from which I operate. That would be ego. So when we release this and take the ground as support, there's no mind. Mind is ego. The mind constructs the ego so that I have a sense of self with which to engage the world. Now I just want this feeling, oh, it's all fallen away. And it's almost like this is snapped here. This is broken and folded. And I've just dropped down. Something in me just releases. And I just slot down a little bit. Because when I pull it all in, do this, I get a real sense of having risen up and left behind the ground and entered my own thought processes, my own sense of self. So I just want to just really release here so that this just drops down. And it is like the bottom has fallen out of the bucket. The feet are just then really flat on the ground. And they're quite happy being there. They've got no desire to relieve themselves by coming up. Now let's just try this, but just really sort of matter of fact. So a lot of what we do just tends to be a bit precious. So if you've just got your feet on the floor, let's just do some pacing first. Now you're lucky because you don't have anyone underneath you. What we'd like to be able to do is just really bang the foot, especially the outside edge, And it really settles the knees. This is something John showed me when I used to get bad knees. It's going to be just stamping on the floor. Shock comes up into the joints, especially the knees and the hips. Just get that feeling that, your foot slaps into the ground and it's just there. There's no sort of adjustment or wriggling. It's just, well, it's on the ground. And then this one can come up, pluck it up. I have to really sort of pull my knee because it's stuck. It's stuck on the ground. It's great doing it outside where there's a bit of earth. There's that bit in the Chen style, isn't there, where they bang the foot down and bang their fist into their palm. And apparently when you do it, the whole room is meant to shake. And then just immediately into this. Again, almost like this sort of frantic machine. We're going quicker than normal. Feeling the physicality of the movement. And really get it coming from the turning. So my arms are hardly moving. It's the turning of the waist. And the middle of that is my Dan Chen. So as my arm goes out, it's controlled by the centrifugal, but then as I turn the other way, the centripetal pulls the hand in. All the time, the tail is released. and it should feel joyous. So when we allow our energy just to work and release rather than trying to hold on to it, then it's just exuberance. So when I repress, then I'm unhappy, even if I don't realize it. What therapists always tell me is that their patients, they're all success stories in a way. They're all bourgeois, good jobs simply to be able to afford the therapy, got the family usually, but they're unhappy. It's largely, I think, because all of that dream, that sort of American dream, that bourgeois dream, comes at the cost of real repression and real control and conformity. I mean, that's what conformity is really. It's just repression, forcing yourself into a mold which generally doesn't suit you. Pulling out of the elbows to separate the shoulder blades at the back, which also releases across the sacrum and into the hips. And just let your tail release. So the tail is usually bunched up like this. So you want it to release down and back. Let's just try some breathing. I'm really sort of working on the tail. So here, my tail goes back. And then here, my tail just curls under just a little in order to bring the hands in. I want to feel it starting in the tail. The tail opens out, reaches back, and something opens up in the upper body. And then my tail just starts curling under. And remember, it's two minds. So I have one mind that's responsible for what happens in the upper part, and another mind that's responsible for the lower part. A big mistake people make is they try to use this mind to get something happening down here. It's too much of a grip. This mind just grips too much. So I just have to allow it. It's like a feeling or an idea that this is coming under. I don't want to watch it too carefully. Otherwise, I'll inhibit it. I'll cramp its style. So yielding and then attacking. Back spreading, shoulder blades separating, front contracting and hollowing, and then the shoulder blades pulling together and the chest splitting apart down the middle. Let's bring it up a bit just to relieve the legs. Feeling that the feet are just really planted. So when it releases here and you just put the foot down, it really feels like you actually sucked onto the ground, almost like it's going to be a real effort to lift that foot. Releasing here, releasing here. And then you get a sense that your tail can sort of move around without you doing anything with your hips. That's the indication that the tail has woken up. Like it has a life of its own and it's up to no good. It's full of mischief. Coming off the heel. I'm trying to keep all of this relaxed. But the trouble is, as soon as I start to do something, I'm doing it from my mind. I'm doing it from my cleverness, and this tends to seize up. So this is what I want to just try and look at and try and let go of. So it is more the feeling. This is why we have to really look at the feelings. So how do I feel when I do this? And how do I feel when I do this? Body full of feeling rather than the body full of mind. It's neurotic body. The libido has been woken up. So a lot of the repression in the tail is simply to control our sexual energy. We want to wake that up. So that we can bring a little of that into everything that we do. This, for me, this is like Freud's great insight. I mean, he had two. So the unconscious, which is an amazing concept. This idea that the vast part of you is unavailable to you. And then this idea that all energy is really sexual energy. That's where it starts. Especially all sort of physical energy. But I suspect all, even sort of mental and spiritual energy all starts off in this region. So here my tail is trying to go down here and my upper back is rising up here. So these two parts, the energy is just flowing up and down like this. So this is how the body wants to work. Two sides, the left and the right, want to do opposite things. I'm just getting the arms in. And again, what we want to do is just get ward off. So a sense that from your elbow to your mid-back, it doesn't move too much. The forearms can move, so my forearms can do this. But it's almost like my upper arm is just sort of locked into the spine. So relative to my body, my elbows remain pretty much immobile. But my hands can move. What we find then is that everything has to be governed by the turning. So I turn here to get this shape, and then I turn here and just let the spine go into it. So I'm sort of tipping over, trying to get as much movement as possible. And then just turning with that same sense of almost like a hard shell. All the time, my tail is releasing. So for the tail to release, the hips have to be loose. Working on the tail will just help you get round a lot further than you normally can. Squat down. And now the hands are sucked onto the ground as well. My shoulder blades are trying to swell away from my spine, which causes my elbows to push my knees out. And then that pressure from my elbows on the legs will also help the sacrum spread. Okay, let's try those leaning postures. First, let's try it without the wall, and then we'll do it with the hands on the wall and just see how different it feels. So this foot pointing more towards that side, into a push posture. This part of my spine down, I want that really reaching down the back leg. My back leg is trying to straighten. And what I'm trying to do is just fold in here in this joint so that I can feel that I'm dropping down behind this leg. And then let's try the other one. And then let's just try it against the wall. So if anything, it's easier because the wall will sort of earth your hands the same way that the ground will earth your feet. You can get more sort of physical action because you can use the legs to push against the wall, but the energy is less fierce. And then the other side. Only when I give myself to the ground with this sense of the feet just sort of having slapped down can I release here in the sacrum and tail. And yet I can only really get that connection with the ground if this is released. And so this is always the difficulty. It's like a catch-22 situation. And then just coming up into attention, trying not to snap the connection with the ground. If I completely straighten my legs, then it will snap. So the part of your mind that's naturally with your tail, it's a bit like the devil in you. So it's the part of you that's contrary, takes risks, and disruptive. Your lower body, which is everything down from the dantian, really. So it includes your sacrum, your tail, your legs. Your lower body is controlled by the back brain, and the upper body is controlled by the front brain. And when you use the front brain to try and control the lower body, then you get repression. And the inevitable consequence of repression is depression. And just a sense of living a phony life, so lack of authenticity.